Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey guys, haven't shared it too many times, but one of the biggest epiphanies that I've ever had in my life was the first day that I started reading personal development, entrepreneurship, business books. And the day that I started reading those books, that was the day when my life changed. And ever since then, I've never stopped. So I've compiled the top 30 books and also the top 30 success quotes that every man must live by in a simple guide. You can download it for free at kfmfree.com. Again, that's kfmfree.com to really start growing in every aspect of your life. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Tony Little, a fitness personality known as America's personal trainer, and he's known for his fitness infomercial products. Tony averages about 6,000 hours a year in front of the TV, and his infomercials have generated more than $4 billion in sales globally. All right, I got Tony here. Happy to have you here on the show.
It's great to be here. I'm excited. Knowledge for men.
There we go.
You know I'm a man.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and you got some knowledge, don't you?
Yeah, I got a lot of knowledge. I know that my last name's Little and my mother's maiden name was Long.
All right. Good start here. Good start. So, Tony, we start off every show with some sort of success quote or a saying that the guest has lived by that's helped them on their incredible journey. So, what do you got for us? And then just kind of explain why you chose that.
Well, my quote would be come from a book that I wrote called "There's Always a Way," because there always is. And the quote would be, "When you change your mindset, you change your life." And I live by that. A lot of times you've got adversities in your life and you need them to turn to victories. And the only way that's going to happen is to change the way you think.
All right. And, I looking through, I'm going through your story here, and it's like you've gotten, more than a handful, let's say, of challenges that have come your way, unexpected adversity that's come your way. So I think that motto, stands strong.
Yeah, it definitely stands strong. I mean, I used to, when I go on and do the interviews and people would ask you, how can you make it seem so simple that somebody can always do it? And I said, well, I mean, the reality is of the word I can versus I can't is pretty simple, isn't it? If you don't think you can do something, you're never going to do it, all right? If you think you can, you at least have a better percentage of getting there.
Right. It's in your head. And I think that's definitely helped you along your journey. This has kind of given us a little bit, a little bit about yourself. We learned a little, but let's kind of dive deeper. Let's take some steps back here. I want to hear your story. I want to hear how you got started in this industry. I know you started out with bodybuilding at a young age, and go ahead and take the mic, Tony, and share your story with my audience.
Okay. I grew up in a small town of Ohio, actually on a farm, if you can believe it. I had actually had a sheep named Birdie. But I grew up on a farm. My father and his father had a business, oil refinery business. My dad wasn't a good guy. My dad was kind of like Daniel Day-Lewis in the movie New York. He was a very tough guy and not a good guy. So anyway, the refinery blows up in the middle of town, and you've got oil everywhere and fire everywhere, and nobody really hurt except for his father, who's 70% burned over his body. And my dad takes off and disappears for 10 years, leaves the family and everybody else, and even leaves his dad, who was in the hospital. So that, I grew up with not much of a father figure type thing. So I'm amazed sometimes that I make the decisions that I do, but my decisions come from real life experiences. I hung out with the wrong crowd because I was in a small town, and I hung out with, they were my crowd. It was a small town, and you hang out with your friends, but then everyone's doing drugs, and everyone's, my mom was a teacher at the school that I skipped, So obviously I always got caught. But I even remember growing up and going to the school. I think I was 13, going to the high school we were going to, and it was snowing and it was nasty and everything. And I was with my best friend. His name was Mark, but I called him Dog. I don't know why.
Okay. All right.
I don't know why. I tried to figure it out. And we go to school, and I said, "Do you really want to go to school today?" And he goes, "Nah, not really." And I said, "Well, let's just go out in the road there and put our thumb out and hitchhike somewhere."
Oh man, this is the story. This is where it gets bad.
All right. So we stuck our thumb out, and on a cold day, and first person picked us up, and before we knew it, we were 3 days on the road. We had a woman pick us up, and she let us stay at one of her rental apartments for the night. We stayed underneath an overpass, where it was the first time I met a Vietnam vet that had a M16 disassembled in his bag. And then we stayed at Salvation Army and got picked up by a lot of different people. It's stuff you couldn't do now, right? But in the end of it, we ended up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. No money, just people helping us out. And I wanted to go on to California and just keep hitchhiking. And my buddy did not. He wanted to go home. So he got on one side of the highway. I got on the other side. And after about 2 hours of not being picked up, we both got together. And I went over to a church and found a pastor and told him the story about how we just, left school one day and ended up here. And he called my mom. And then my mom flew us back to Ohio. So that was kind of the first start of, I wasn't a very controllable kid type thing. I even remember my sister getting in a fight with her boyfriend, and obviously you go to protect your sister. So I'm beating up her boyfriend, and my mom hits me in the back of the head with a ketchup bottle. And back then it wasn't plastic.
Yeah, it was a glass bottle.
It was a glass bottle.
It's like a glass. It's a thick bottle. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My mom was my biggest motivator. I mean,
she had good intentions.
Yeah, she had great intentions, but long story short, it wasn't in a good area. So,
I like the whole adventure. Of course, we're limited on time, but I'm enjoying this.
I can tell you that I then was in I was still a bad kid. So I was at an apartment, and it was the wintertime again, and I was always hanging out with kids who were older than me. Like, I think they were in their 20s, mid-20s, and I was just like a young guy who was a little different. And
do you think you were looking for like some sort of father figure or like a mentor?
It might have been. I don't know, but I was attracted to hanging out with the older group of guys, and they seemed to like me as kind of like, I don't know. I guess I was physically fit, and I worked out still, and I probably acted a little older than I was because I didn't have a dad. I was a little more independent and things like that. But I remember a friend of mine. He was kind of a new friend, but his name was David, and he came to the party and he said, "Hey, I got a new car. You want to drive it?" And I go, "Yeah." He said, "What is it?" And he says, "Oh, it's a Firebird. It's a '69 Firebird." And I said, "Really? I didn't think you could afford that." He said, "No, I just got it." And he said, "Drive it." And so I went down and went with him. And on the way, he stopped. He says, "I got to pick up my old car." And I'm kind of not understanding what's going on, but I'm like, "Oh, okay." He says, "Let's go out." We lived in the country, right? So we lived in the boondocks. There was really nobody out there except for my luck with things. And I started get ready to drive his car, and he says, "Let's take it out in the country and I'll show you how it works." And we go out in the country, and then he tells me that he stole the car.
Oh gosh.
All right, and I'm driving it, right? And so I'm like going, "You stole the car?" And he goes, "Yeah, I stole the car. Why do you think I'm driving my other car behind you?" And I'm like, "Well, what am I doing?" He says, "You're helping me get rid of it." And I'm like going, "Dude, that's not what you said. It's a new car." He said, "Oh, I didn't say how it was a new car." And so anyway, long story short, I'm out in the middle of a cornfield that's mowed down in the snow, doing donuts in this car, having a little fun with it. Like he said, just have some fun with it for a minute and then leave it there. And I was going around in it and da-da-da-da. And then all of a sudden, I mean, we're in the boondocks. There ain't nobody out there, right? All of a sudden, the sheriff pulls up. And I'm like, "A sheriff? Give me a break." And he spotlights David in his car, and I'm still out in the middle of the field. So I just kind of slide out of the car in the snow, and crawl through the snow over a fence and into this water and then across. And I go to the first light I see, which is a farm. And I knock on the door and I tell the guy, I said, I was, hitchhiking and some guy, tried to make moves on me. and I need to get a ride home. And so I thought I'm out of it, right? And he says, we really should call the cops. And I said, no, let's not do that. I'm okay. All right, let's not do that. Let's not call the cops. Anyway, long story short, I'm in this truck with this guy. We're going down another street in the boondocks where nobody's at. And here comes the sheriff down the other side of the road. And he says, hey, look, there's a sheriff. Let's stop and tell him. And I said, no, you don't have to do that. And he says, no, we really should. That was bad what happened to you. And I said, So he rolls down his window, and the sheriff rolls down his window. And he says, yeah, I got this guy here. He was hitchhiking. He had a problem. And the sheriff goes, is his name Tony Little? And I went, And he said, he left his driver's license and his YMCA card in the car. They must have fell out of my pocket or something. And so he had the other guy in the back of the seat. And so he threw me in the back of the seat with him. And I kept telling David, he was talking to me that he was going to get grand theft because he was older than 18. He was, in his 23 or whatever, that I should tell him that I stole it because I'm underage and I won't get in trouble. And so I'm like going, well, that's true. I'm probably not going to get into the trouble you would get into. But anyway, so we got back to the thing, and I said that I stole the car, wrote everything. Nobody believed I did because I didn't. And then they came to me and said, well, where'd you get the license plates? And I said, what are you talking about? License plates. They were stolen too. Where'd you steal those from? And I said, don't remember. And in that course, I let them know really that I did not take the car. But we went to trial, and and since the judge and everybody believed that I didn't have anything to do with it, I was just a bystander. They said, my mom came up with this thing, well, you know what? I haven't been able to control him as a child and as a teenager. So in order to help everyone make a decision here, I've decided to move him to live with his uncle, my brother, in Florida, and to have more of a male influence in his life. And so they were fine with that, and they let me go, and they put the other guy away. And then I moved to Florida, and I didn't want to have any more friends. So I became self-motivated to myself.
That was the end of that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's kind of anticlimactic, but my mom, what I get out of it is my mom was a very strong person because she decided that the way to change me was to change my environment. And by changing my environment, that would change my life. And she was right. Yep. Yep. You learn that. I learned a lot after that. When I became more, I did good in school. I excelled at jobs. I was very positive, a very positive thinker. I just kept on going and moving and trying to better myself and things. Got into the bodybuilding area. The bodybuilding area I exceeded at very, very quickly. I was the youngest Mr. Florida when I won, I think, in a long time, almost 10 or 12 years. And then I was kind of a favorite for the Mr. America in 1983 or 82 or 81. I can't even remember now. Now that I'm getting older, I think faster than I can remember. And then all of a sudden I got a sponsor. Actually, before I got a sponsor, meaning that there was this Russian lady that was a gymnast she was about 65 years old, and I wanted to become a professional bodybuilder. And one of my friends who was a pro wrestler, or wanting to be a pro wrestler, also wanted to go into a different direction. And she came up and she said, I'd love to help you with your sport. She saw me at a bodybuilding show and everything like that, and said, I'd be willing to financially support you to do this. And I'm like going, really? And she goes, yeah, really, and obviously older woman, younger guy, supports you, pay your rent, give you a car. I'm like, uh-oh, this is probably not a good thing. But anyway, it worked out. She ended up doing all that. And then I brought in the wrestler who did whatever the deal was. And I got my rent and my car paid for. And then I was able to train full time for the bodybuilding, which really made a difference. And then I was picked up by another sponsor that actually was the head of the Florida Bodybuilding Association. And I moved up pretty quick in the bodybuilding ranks, but again, we all have adversities, and I would just, I think it was, I can't ever remember the times anymore, but it was like, couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 weeks maybe out from the Mr. America, which I was a favorite for in that year, which I'm believing was 81 or 83, somewhere in there. It's probably in my bio. And I was hit by a school bus just before the shows. And, you get out and you're freaked out. You're not freaked out about you getting hit because it was a school bus. I was freaked out if the kids were all right because it was, I was driving through a green light when the bus came hauling crossways and just rammed me like a steamroller in my yeah, I had a green light, and they ran that, and I mean ran it, and hit me right in my driver's side door, and injured my shoulder, injured my knee, and injured my back. And so I was in a lot of pain and everything, but I refused to stop training for the bodybuilding show, and because I was so close, and so I had to keep the pain away and just keep training. And by the time I got to the America and things like that, I was pretty. I didn't have the quality muscle that I would have had because I couldn't train with heavy weight anymore, and I couldn't do the reps I wanted. And even though I had the mental fortitude to persevere through the pain and do everything else, my body wasn't cooperating quite as well in the pain area. So I came in 5th in my class in that instead of doing what I should have done. And then my body fell apart, and I spent 2 years in and out of hospitals without a job and in a small 1-bedroom apartment, depressed.
Was it because of the loss, or is it because of the injury, or just kind of like a?
Yeah, it was basically what it was because I was masking the pain, and because I was still training, and because I wasn't going to give up, my big shot in life. I ended up hurting myself worse. So I had to have knee surgery, and then I had to have go up to Shands Hospital in northern Florida because I had 3 or 4 herniated discs in my back. And so, yeah, medically wise, I was messed up. And also knowing that I wasn't going to be able to train for more than a year or 2 years, that was pretty much the bodybuilding career was gone. So I was in a 1-bedroom apartment and pretty depressed about life and couldn't seem to get a handle on it, was abusing the painkillers and abusing the alcohol and things like that. Came about 60 pounds overweight, and thought you get to that time and you just got to do a lot of soul searching and realize again where you came from and the adversities you already had, and I realized that when my back is against the wall, I'm a much better fighter. So and my back was against the wall, and one day I saw, not that anyone wants to hear this part of it because obviously not a lot of people like her, but there's, for a lot of reasons, I guess. But I saw Jane Fonda starting on television, right, with the exercise videos. And I thought it kind of made me think about what I could do. I mean, here she is doing exercise videos, and obviously she had a personal trainer.
Okay.
That had exercised her or somebody that helped her learn how to do that. So I felt like I could give back something and get into the business of helping other people get in shape and get myself back in shape. And I also thought I could do a show. So I immediately went out to a cable company called Westinghouse Cable Company. And I went down and talked to a guy named Jack Taylor. And I said, I want to do my own fitness show. And the guy looked at me like, dude, you're like overweight. Who are you? I said, well, I was a former Mr. Florida, Mr. Junior America, Southern States. I mean, I was a bodybuilding champion, and a fitness guy. And he said, but you don't look like it. And I said, yeah, well, I had a rough time here. I got hit by a bus and all this.
Got hit by a bus.
And I said, I want to do a fitness show for you guys, And he goes, well, that's fine. You can, but you're going to have to pay for it because it's not like we give out fitness shows, right? And I said, how much? And he said, $5,500 for 13 shows. And I said, and you shoot them? And they go, yeah, we shoot them. You just have to know what you're doing. And I said, all right, I accept. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. I signed the contract, went home, and I forced myself I was now in it. I signed a contract for money I didn't have. So I went home and I started thinking real hard about I backed me against the wall. What am I going to do to pay this? And I came up with the idea for a cleaning service called TNT Cleaning Services. And I wrote it out on paper that it specialized in health spas, wet areas. Because I remember when I was a young trainer and I worked in the health spas, people were always complaining how dirty the whirlpools were.
Yeah.
And complaining how bad the showers were and the fungus and all that other stuff. So I wrote this treatment up on our company specialized in that, and went out and I sold $60,000 in contracts to a chain of health spas that day. And then I was in business. Then I realized that I didn't really have a business. So I hired all my friends that didn't have work for $10 an hour. And I made a lot more than that out of the thing. And then we started the service overnight and did it for quite a long time. And that helped me pay for the television show that became #1. But then they told me, hey, you got 4 or 5 commercial spots. And I said, I got what? And they said, you got spots where you can shoot commercials and support your television program. I said, really? And then I went out and started getting my local pancake house and vitamin stores. And then I became a producer and shooting all the commercials to my show. And that's how my first television show started.
And then how did you get into like infomercials with the fitness products and some of those stuff? I've also had Kevin Harrington on this podcast as well, and I know that there was some.
Yeah, we're friends. We're good friends. Very quickly, what I did after the television show is I wanted to do my first video, exercise video, and I didn't have the money to do that, so I did another presentation, sent it out to 100 different people in my local area, and hoping to get some response back that somebody would be willing to sponsor me or give me the money for a video. And I only had one person send me a thing back, and it was the attorney that represented me when I got hit by the school bus. And I gave up the lawsuit because I couldn't sit around anymore, right? I wanted to get back into life. And so he gave me the $125,000 cash to do my first video, which is kind of interesting. It's usually you're giving the attorney the money.
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking.
Right, yeah. Well, eventually he got a lot of it back. All right.
Right. What was the video that you made?
The first one was called Body Size, BODYCISE. And it was a progressive resistance training exercise video. And then I didn't know how to sell it. So I went out to a convention called the VSDA, Video Software Dealers Association in Vegas. And I walked the floor. They had like MGM and Paramount and all these different film companies, big companies that were just getting into the rental video market with special interest videos. And I did everything from arm wrestle guys to get to talk to the president but anyway, I left that convention with 6 offers for my video. And I did that. So I got my first offer in a video and did it myself. And then after the videos started to take off in rental, I wasn't making a lot of money because you're only like 30,000 rental places. There was no sell through of the video, right? You couldn't sell videos then. You rented them. And I came back and a lot of the companies wouldn't let you in a lot of the stores because they had big libraries they were selling. Like, Warner was selling a huge library that included Fonda. You couldn't get any shelf space. So I had to find another way around this adversity or this problem. So I started to notice Home Shopping Network locally had just started in Clearwater, Florida. So I started calling them up daily and talking to them and saying, listen, I got some videos, I can sell, because I produced 3 more videos called Target Training and with some more money. And they kept turning me down and saying, oh, you'll never be able to, we don't sell videos on the shopping channel. We sell cosmetics and we sell cubic zirconia and all that stuff, but we don't sell that. And I kept on, and you would never make the money. It would never work here. And kept calling. Didn't give up. Found out the owner of Home Shopping's son owned a gym in Clearwater. And so I went over, drove my car over to his son's gym in Clearwater. And I went in and I talked to his son. And I said, listen, if you give me 15 minutes with your dad, I'll help you promote your gym. And he said, well, hop in your car. And I said, no problem there, dude. I hop in my car and we drive to Clearwater in this big, gigantic 3-story brick Roebling estate house because, obviously home shopping was multi-millions by then. And I walk in the house, and his dad is 6'6", Bud is. In fact, I just went to Bud Paxton's funeral, who started home shopping. He just died. I just went there in Palm Beach. And he looked at me, and the first thing he did was, "You're Tony Little, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "I hear you call our offices every day." and I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And he says, "And now you're standing in my home." And yes, sir, I am. A long story short, I made a bet with him that it would work and that it would sell. And he took the bet, and I won. And I was the first on-air celebrity, really wasn't a celebrity at the time, was a fitness person, but not first one ever to start on any shopping channel in the world, by Bud giving me the chance to go on live and be myself.
What I've just noticed from listening to you, during this part of your story is that like a lot of stuff isn't working. A lot of stuff isn't really going your way. You're just kind of like maneuvering your way, trying to get in front of people, and you're getting rejected constantly, but you keep going.
Yeah, you can't give up. I mean, the only way you lose is to give up, right? I'm a simple thinker. I don't try to get complicated on anything. You give up, you lose. That's all I need to say to myself is, you give up, you lose. So don't give up. So I don't give up. And I think there's always a way. That's why I wrote the book. I think there's always a way around an issue. The same way when I got into infomercials, when I was at Home Shopping Network, this guy from who used to be one of the big senior VPs at NBC, came over to Home Shopping to run an infomercial division of HSN. And the first thing he did was he called me up, and he goes, "I'm overweight, and I'm now running the infomercial division of HSN, and I come from NBC, and I went to Wharton Business School. I can have Jake come over here and train me, or I could have you train me every day, and I'd rather have you. And here's the deal: I'm not going to pay you anything to train me, but every day that you run with me or work out with me, as we're getting in shape, and obviously knowing that I'm a very influential character in the industry of infomercials and otherwise, you can ask me anything you want about the industry, about anything to do with television." And I said, "Deal done." And so every day I met with this gentleman who was an amazing man, and I learned so much from him on infomercials, on direct response TV, and all this other stuff. The next time he called me, he said there was the second ever infomercial awards banquet in Las Vegas again, called NEMA, National Infomercial Marketing Association. And he said, "I want you to go to it." And I said, "How am I going to go to it?" He says, "You find a way to get there, I'll have a seat for you." So I went there, and it had, like, at the time it had Angie Dickinson, and who was an actress and stuff like that, and a bunch of other people there. And there's this big table right at the front of the stage where they give the awards. And he takes me to that table, and he looks at everyone at the table, and he introduces me to Guthrie Rinker, who does Proactive now. You see it all over on the commercials and stuff like that. He introduces me to the two owners of Guthrie Rinker. He introduces me to National Media, which is was part of Kevin's company, Kevin Harrington. It was National Media, which was an international infomercial company. And he introduces me to another guy named Mike Levy, who was really a very big leader in the infomercial industry. And all this guy does for me is he looks at everyone and he says, "I'm going to let Tony Little sit here, and whoever leaves here today making a deal with that young man is going to make millions." And then I just started to talk to everybody. and I realized that I wanted to go with Kevin in National Media because I felt that what I had to say was international, not just national. And they were the only company at the time that had international and global penetration. And I felt like I didn't care if it was in French or different languages that are out there in different countries. People would understand. If your waist is fat, all I had to do was pull the fat out and show them. Everyone would understand. And so that's what I did. So that's how I got in the infomercials. Funny thing, just to tell you about Kevin Harrington. So Kevin and I, when we first met, we got along immediately. He was living in Philadelphia, and his wife was driving this convertible Ferrari. I was in the back seat with my manager, Ray Manzella, out of LA, and Kevin was in the front seat. And this is my first time that we actually went out to dinner and stuff. And his wife was trying to kill him with me in the back car. And so she was like going like 90 miles an hour in the middle of Philadelphia. And it was a convertible. And oh my gosh. So I've had a lot of fun experiences with Kevin and his ex-wives.
Multiple there. Okay, and continue along with your story into the infomercial industry, and then what was your big break with the infomercials, and then kind of just take us to where you are now.
Okay, the big break with the infomercials is out of that convention where all of a sudden, I went with the Philadelphia company, National Media, which is one of the companies Kevin was a partner in, and I met and remember the other guy I mentioned, Mike Levy. That was at the table. Mike Levy ran a special show that was on for many, many years called Amazing Discoveries. And he never did fitness. He did all different kinds of projects and widgets and stuff like that. But it was a really good branded infomercial formatted show. So I talked to Michael, and got him convinced to be the first fitness show that he's ever done as a host. And the reason why I picked him was because I wanted to start out on my first infomercial. When people saw it, I wanted them to think that I was an amazing discovery. And because I felt I was. And so we did it. And just a quick note, when I'm a live presenter, so I only do mostly live TV. And so when we first did his infomercial, the first 10 minutes of the 28 minutes that you do was one take, right? Just one take. I mean, it was like perfect. But the attorneys didn't like a certain part of it, and then his wife didn't like the other part because I market differently than most people. I try to think outside the box, and I believe that humor is very important to selling. I believe that not always taking yourself so seriously is endearing, and I think always being positive about what you can accomplish is the most important thing, believing in yourself. And so we went ahead and did the show, but the reason they shut it down for 10 minutes was because on the first take, I had taken the old exercise bike that used to be motorized, it goes back and forth. You might not know it, but you had a motorized exercise bike, and it would kind of move you, right? Back and forth. It's really kind of animated looking thing. And I didn't think that it demoed well, that we had an audience. We had a live audience. And I didn't think it demoed well, and so I went out and had one of my people buy a blow-up dowel. And of course, the only place you could get blow-up dowels at the time where blow-up dowels are. So I got a blow-up dowel and blew it up, and then I taped her hands to the bars on the bike, and then her feet on the pedals. And on our first take, which we're going through, and I'm talking about fitness from the past. We went past this bike, and that inflatable was going every which way and looking at it, and then all of a sudden you go, and she blows a hole and starts shrinking on the thing, and the audience went nuts, right? Went nuts, loved it because it was humor, right? And then there was this big conflict of whether it was right to do that or not to do that or whatever. And Mike Levy looked at me and said, "What do you think?" I said, "I always go by what the audience likes. If they didn't clap during that thing and go crazy over it, I'd say scrap it. Otherwise, I'd say leave it in." and he did. I was a pretty hyper guy back then, so they released the infomercial. It was called Amazing Discoveries, and it was target training. And the guy who owned National Media was a guy named John Turchi out of Philadelphia, a big real estate company. Called another friend of mine that knew me, but who is involved with Stallone and some other people, George Simone, and said, "I just blew $250,000 on a guy yelling and screaming on television." And George goes to him, "Well, I would let it run because you might be surprised." Because I'm convicted. I'm hyper, and when I get involved in stuff, you got to motivate people. You got to get them excited, and you also got to give them the right information, and you got to make them believe, because a lot of people don't believe in themselves. And so I do that. But the big thing was, he called back like 2 days later, and he said he just broke all records in the industry.
with that infomercial piece.
Yep, 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 yeah. We sold almost 8 million videos out of it, and it was in 81 countries. And so that was my first infomercial, and you heard the home shopping story, and I'm still with home shopping, and now I'm very fortunate. I'm a brand. So my biggest companies now, my footwear company's my biggest company, which it's called Cheeks Footwear. And then I also do I'm 60% of a lot of the food business for the shopping channels. So I do what's called Body by Bison, which is, buffalo or bison meat. I've sold over 4 million of my burgers and 4 million of my hot dogs. And I have now 34 different products under Body by Bison, which, is healthy eating, superfood type stuff. I have a pillow that I can't even say pillow properly that we've sold 4 million of called the Micropedic Therapy Pillow that we developed into a brand. And now we have beds coming out. What else? And I still do fitness, but as I get older, fitness is harder for me because, I give out a lot of energy. So if you're doing 9 1-hour shows of fitness, it would drain anyone, let alone somebody who's, getting up there past 50 some years old, So I have a treadmill of my own. I have my Gazelle, which was a big hit. Gazelle sold probably 7 million people, 8 million people. And that continues to be a big hit, which was a machine that I did for Geico. I was on the Geico commercial. I think it was before the cavemen.
That was a while ago. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And because when I own 7 different trademarks on "you can do it," right?
Oh, yeah. It's technique.
Yeah, or it's technique. Yeah, I own those phrases, right? But the "you can do it" has sparked a lot of interest over the years because everyone thought it was like the guy from SNL on the Waterboy that said it.
Oh yeah. Adam Sandler.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they realized that I started it in '81, and I've been doing it, forever and ever and ever. But I also own all the 7 different trademark categories of it because I kind of even had a Dunkin' Donut run in when they were trying to use it. You can do it. Yeah, right. Eat a donut. Get fat.
Now, looking back at your journey here, like what would you say is your key piece of advice on overcoming adversity?
Well, you just can never quit. I mean, life is too short. You can never quit. I mean, you're on the stage one time in your life, and then you're gone forever. So, you got to get motivated. It's just you got to have a mindset that you just never give up on, and the mindset is always believe in yourself and always go for it. And no matter what you're going for, realize at least 90% or 80% of the time, there's always a way to get around all the different obstacles you have to finally get to your goal. You just got to believe in it. And you got to think outside the box. You got to stand out, you got to step out to stand out. You can't be the same as everyone else. That's not what's going to make you stand out. I grew the long hair. I mean, I used to be a short-haired, good-looking, clean-cut guy. And now I have this long hair, and I'm happy to still have hair at my age, which is a very good thing. But I have the long hair because I wanted people back when, there were 54 or 55 channels that you could only go on to stop and go, hey, who's that rock star? Instead, it's a fitness guy who just got you to watching, right? So I used the hair as basically a marketing tool for channel stopping at the time, but then it became my trademark, and now I can't get rid of it. Not that I'd want to, but I mean, believe me, if you don't think you'll see me in hair care pretty soon, you'd be wrong.
So you've had an incredible career in sales. It sounds like you just learned along the way. Obviously you didn't go to like some business school. You didn't get an MBA.
Nope.
You learned along the way, and I really admire that. So what would you say is your like the greatest selling secret that you could offer anyone interested in doing something like what you're doing, or just some great lessons you've learned on sales?
Well, I can tell you, I think it's important that people understand that enthusiasm sells. You can sit down. I mean, I've been with Doug Morris from MCA. I've been with Jimmy Iovine, who, was just with hooked up with was it Dr. Dre with the headphones?
Yeah, the Beats,
The Beats, right? Which I
Beats
have
by
the
Dre,
Beats.
and they got acquired by Apple.
Right. Well, Jimmy Iovine used to be from Interscope Records. He owned that. He's a genius. He's a musical genius, and I was offered a job by them early on in my career. I was offered a job by Atlantic Records for a division of that, and I was offered a job with David Hasselhoff and Baywatch years ago, and all that came from believing in myself and always going for it, and also having the enthusiasm when I speak to people about something. I don't sell things unless I love them. And if I love them, I can speak pretty enthusiastically about it, because I think that when you're dealing in a product that's all positive and no negative, there's no negative to feeling better. There's no negative to looking better. There's no negative to living longer. So I'm in a great business, but enthusiasm is in the way you talk to people and the way the energy you give out to them really can pay back 10,000 fold to you. So the way you talk, and also you be prepared. If you're going to go to war, you want more ammunition, not less.
Yeah, I like that. And now let's dive into just a quick part, as we conclude here, into the knowledge round. So I'm just going to ask you a few rapid fire questions and just some shorter answers. So
I have no knowledge.
Yeah, I know. Clearly.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the knowledge round, Tony?
No, I have no. If it takes anything to do with remembering, my life went too fast.
All right.
If you want to grow to the highest levels that you've ever been at in your life, go to kfmfree.com and you can download the top 30 books and success quotes that every man must live by. Every guy should read. If you want to grow, if you want to achieve greatness in life, you're going to have to read and surround yourself with the greatest minds of the world. So I've done all of the hard work for you. I've read hundreds of books. I've listened to hundreds of audiobooks. I've gone through and found the best quotes that you'll need to succeed and thrive and grow and become the man that you want to be. So go to kfmfree.com and I'll send it to you right now. kfmfree.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
First question I have for you, Tony, is what advice would you give to someone who's feeling kind of lost or unsure of what they should do with their life?
Do what you love. If you find something that you really enjoy, you really love, and try to get in that business. And that way, every day you go to work, it's a joy. And if you don't get in that area, at least get something that, you have a job, anyway. But, do something you love. Figure it out. All
right. And, Tony, what was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
The number one thing that would have held me back from where I am today would be simply not believing in myself. If I don't believe in me, nobody else is going to believe in me.
I like that. And I got a scenario here for you, Tony. Imagine you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
Geez, that's an interesting one. Yeah, I'd tell him if he decides that he's going to be an entrepreneur and he's going to build a business, that it's tough, very, very tough, and whatever he does, protect everything with IP. Get patents, get trademarks, get copyrights, get URLs, get everything you can up front so you don't have to worry about people ripping you off. And what I tell him not to do is to get married before the age of 30, and to make sure if he got married that he was really, really, really sure that that was the right woman for the rest of his life.
So stay single in your 20s and then...
Oh, yeah. Get through your career for sure. I'm really proud of my son and daughter. I have a son who's 27 and a daughter that's 28. And I remember the business shows. I do Fox Business and a lot of the other ones, Neil Cavuto and things like that. And people ask me, do your kids do the same thing you do? And I said, heck no. They didn't want to be an entrepreneur. They wanted a real paycheck. And they wanted everything set up. So my son was really smart. He went to UF, and not smart. He had to work hard. But he went to UF, and then when he went over to University of Nebraska Medical School, he chose a specialty that only had 10 people in the graduation class. versus 200 doctors or 200 physical therapists. And I think it was one of the smartest things I've ever seen, because I would think you would want to be the doctor, right? But a lot of them, unfortunately, they have pay back the high school loans.
Right.
And then there's so many of them, it's hard for them to get the job they want. And then the malpractice insurance is so high. I was yelling at my son when he was in college saying, dude, when you're going to get a job, right? And get some real work experience to add to that college education you get someday. And he's like, when I don't get an A? And I'm like, oh, great. But he was really smart. He picked a specialty. He goes right out of college to a 90 grand job, 7 weeks vacation, and profit sharing and all this other stuff. And his first job paid a lot more than my tomato picking by the bushel.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And so, yeah, that was that scenario there. And just kind of now, kind of summarizing some of your main ideas and philosophies here. It's just, reflecting back on, let's say when you were driving that, what was it, a Firebird in the back of a cop car to where you are now, or even when you were hitchhiking, and just kind of looking at the stories and challenges that you've overcome since then. What would you say is your philosophy on like life and success?
The philosophy of my life and success is never giving up. It's simply just never giving up. Again, I look at life as that there's always a way around something. I'm sure that I'm going to hit that thing that I can't get around sometimes, but I sure get a higher percentage of wins because I believe in myself and I always go for it versus not. So I think that my motto has been, you can do it forever. And I really believe that you can, as long as you believe in yourself. And the end result is, I think I'm really good at what I do because I make it simple, because I only play with things that I really think other people will love as much as I love, and that I have no boundaries in how I present it. So I'm allowed to have fun and entertainment and say the real things that are in my mind, which I think I was probably reality TV before there was reality TV in a natural sense, because all my infomercials were live and nobody ever did that in the industry. And that's why I think they work. And I think that's why now people watch reality shows now in order to feel better, because these people are train wrecks, right? It's a counter motivational technique to let you watch some of these people that their lives are just so messed up that you go, wow, honey, we're really doing good.
Right.
Because you don't watch them. There's not really any reality shows out there that motivate you. Some of the ones the selling ones that kind of motivate you to want to do a business would be like Shark Tank, or back when Trump was doing his thing,
Apprentice.
Yeah, Apprentice. Those were good. Other than that, bad out there.
It is. And now that concludes the knowledge round there, Tony. Just like real, briefly, what's exciting you today? Like, what are you looking forward to? What's getting you out of bed in the morning?
What's getting me out of bed in the morning? My new bed that I'm selling, the de-stress spa bed, is getting me out of bed because it has multi-positions on it now, where I can take my feet up or bring my back up, or I can wake up and it knocks me out of bed, No, that's just funny. I'm just sorry. But I do have a bed coming out. What excites me every day now is I have 5 years ago, I had extremely premature babies, twins, and they almost didn't make it. They were 1 pound 14 ounces each. I mean, if you look at a 2 pound plate in a gym, that's the size they were. And they made it, and some complications. One had a level 3 brain bleed, and the other had heart surgery, and now they're 5 years old, and they make kids always make life worth living anyway. They're the only things you work for once you have your children, is to do things for them. That's what makes work worthwhile. I just not sure I want to go through T-ball again. But so my kids are the number one thing that makes life worthwhile. And my wife, she's amazingly supportive in a lot of areas, so that helps. And that's very important to me.
All right. I like that. And do you want to just go ahead and give yourself a plug on how the audience can follow up with any upcoming events or your website, upcoming products?
If you want product that makes you feel good, look good, and get more out of life, look for Tony Little. Always look for Tony Little, because I only do what I love, or represent products I love. TonyLittle.com or Tony Little Real on Twitter.
Just Google your name, Tony Little, and it'll all show up.
Oh, is that right? I should have known that. See, I just learned a marketing technique from you.
All right, Tony, it's been an honor having you here on the show. Your story of wild and crazy adventures to building successful businesses and having young children. It's been an honor having you here on the show and sharing your story and your life lessons here. So I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Andrew. I really do appreciate it. Have a great one. Congratulations on your success.
All right, you as well in your continued success.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and 1 million downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we've just started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a review in iTunes. It really helps to grow the podcast. Guys, 2015 is the official year of living with purpose, where every day you do only the things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. Check out kfmfree.com to get free tools I've created to help you crush life. Again, that's kfmfree.com. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and I'll see you in the next episode.